Everyone's been waiting for the big housing meltdown, but here's the reality. In Hamilton, the numbers are shifting in a way that are really beneficial for first-time buyers specifically. Prices have cooled down and supply is starting to stack up. There's tons of listings on the market right now, and there's not too many sales happening, which means that if you're in the market, this is a great time to be starting your search. Hamilton's benchmark price is sitting at about $703,000, which is about 9% lower than it was at the same time last year. That's not pocket change. That's almost $70,000 less on your typical home. And for first-time buyers, that's the kind of reduction that can mean the difference between being stuck renting forever and actually being able to get your foot in the door of the housing market. Now, the average viewer might look at that number and think, oh my God, things are crashing, things are going down. I'm going to wait to see how much more they go down before I get in. The smart buyers are actually out there putting offers on homes and getting things locked down at a great price. Now, in terms of actual sales, we saw about 460 sales across Hamilton last month. Now, that might not be a booming number, especially compared to some of the recent years, but what that does tell you is that there's still people out there buying homes. There's still almost 500 families who bought a home last month. So if you're sitting there thinking that nobody's buying right now, that's just not the case. And I almost guarantee that those 500 families that bought something are going to be very happy that they did in the next 5, 10, 15 plus years. Because really, if you're looking at real estate, you always want to be buying for the long term. Don't be buying for the short term, because then you're just gambling on what's going to happen in the market. You want to instead buy something that makes sense for you today, especially while we have reduced prices and low competition, and then stay in it for the next 5, 10, 15 plus years and just watch the value go up. Now, another reason why I think this is really good for buyers, not necessarily so good for sellers, is that the amount of listings on the market is rising month over month. We had over 1,000 new listings hit the market in August, and again, like I said, only 460 of them sold, so that means that there's a discrepancy there. There's about 2,333 homes actively on the market today. Now, if you're trying to sell your home, that is not good news, just because that's your competition. All those other listings that are on the market right now are competing for the very few buyers that are actually out looking. That means you're probably not going to be getting too many offers, and even if you do, they're most likely going to be below what you were expecting. And that's also why it's extremely important that you price your home effectively. You don't want to be overpriced, especially when there's a bunch of other listings out there on the market. The average home in Hamilton is at least $50,000 overpriced right now, so you don't want to just be another overpriced listing in the sea of overpriced listings. If you price competitively, your home will move in a reasonable time frame. Now, like I said, for buyers, that represents a great opportunity. Over 2,300 listings means that there's opportunity out there for you to find your dream home, or at least a very reasonable starter home at a great price. And because there's so little demand for housing right now, not only is that going to put a downward pressure on prices, you also have the opportunity to be more picky with the homes that you are looking at. It's been really nice working with buyers recently, just because we don't have to rush to get into showings the second that they come onto the market. We can take our time, we can line up a few of them, and we can go around and we can really look at a bunch of different things before we decide to offer on something. It's been fairly pleasant and stress-free. Another metric to look at is the sales to new listings ratio, which for last month was about 45%. Anything that is below 60% is more in buyer territory. So the last couple of years during COVID, when everything was crazy, it was around 70 to 80% of a sales to new listings ratio, but now it's at 45%, which has tipped the scale toward buyers' favor, not necessarily towards sellers. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that everywhere in Hamilton is reacting the same way. Hamilton's a pretty interesting market because there's a bunch of different sub-markets within the overall city of Hamilton. It's a pretty large area. So while some areas might be seeing really, really low competition, high inventory, there's other areas where we're still getting multiple offers on listings. So you want to make sure that you are fully aware of what area you're buying in, that you know what are the dynamics of that area, so that you don't end up stuck in a bidding war and you end up getting your emotions involved and end up overpaying for something. Another metric that's important to be aware of when you're looking at the market is the days on market, which is just how long it takes for a home to sell. Right now, the average is about 37 days. The higher this number is, the slower the market typically is. So again, during COVID, it was about maybe 7 to 15 days that it was taking for a home to sell. Now it's more than double that. So again, that slowdown represents an opportunity for buyers because the home isn't going to sell the second it hits the market, which means it gives you the opportunity to compare and contrast multiple listings against each other so that you can make sure that the one that you actually offer on is the one that you're actually going to love. Now, that being said, if you do find something that's a really good listing, that means it's priced well and it's in good condition and it's actually fairly desirable for the price point that it's listed at, you want to make sure that you are still acting relatively quickly, because we are still seeing those ones going quickly. And then we also have the months of supply, which is at about 5 months. Now, what that means is it's basically how long it would take at the current rate that homes are selling at. If no new listings hit the market, that's how long it would all take to sell off. So that's about 5 months currently. Now, if we were looking at a seller's market, it would be anywhere from 0 to 2 months of supply. A balanced market would be roughly 2 to 4, and then anything 4 plus, 4 to 6 months plus, which is where we're at now, 5 months, is going to be a buyer's market. This is a good metric to keep an eye on just because prices don't usually rise first. You'll normally see supply start to tighten first, and then prices will follow in the coming months. Now, like I mentioned before, each part of Hamilton has its own different sub-markets, so you want to make sure that you look at each one individually. Like East Hamilton is closer to 6 months of supply, which means that there's a lot more negotiating leverage in that area. But if you look at the Mountain, it's around 4 months of supply, so it's lower, which means that you're not going to have as much negotiating leverage in this area. It's still buyer leaning, but there is more activity and more demand for these areas, so just keep that in mind. This is also why it's important to not just look at the averages, because there's outliers on all sides. You could have 3 months of supply over here, and then you could have 7 months of supply over there. Now, when it comes to individual property types, we're seeing quite a drop in the condo market. Condos are averaging around 466,000, which is a 10% drop year over year. There's also over 10 months of supply for condos, which is massive, and the average days on market is over 50 as well. So depending on your price point, condos could be a great opportunity to get yourself into the market because they're relatively cheap. There's so many listings on the market right now for condos, and sellers have no other options when it comes to buyers. You just want to make sure that you're doing your homework when you're buying a condo, though. You want to make sure you look at the condo fees, what that actually gets you, and how it's going to affect your monthly living expenses. And also keep in mind that super high condo fees can affect your resale value down the line, and most likely your condo fees are going to go up as you live there as the years go on. It's very rare that the condo fees actually end up going down. So that's just something in mind. It can be a great opportunity to get into the market, but do your research. Then we have townhouses sitting at about 669,000 with about 5.5 months of supply. This is going to be the middle lane between condos and detached. If you have a little bit more of a budget, but you can't quite afford a detached home yet and you want some more space, then townhomes are going to be a better option for you. Now, some townhouses are going to have condo fees. It really depends on the individual complex, so just make sure you're looking into that. And then we have detached homes, which are much tighter at about 4.4 months of supply. And the average price for detached homes in Hamilton is at around $842,000. Now, again, this is just an average for all of Hamilton. Some areas are going to be much lower than that. It really depends on where you're looking and what your price point is. So really, in my opinion, I've been saying it for the last little bit now, but I genuinely think that this is one of the best buyer's markets that we've seen in the last little while, and that we're probably going to see for the next several years. Prices have come down a lot since the peak, and with the amount of listings that are on the market right now, buyers have so much negotiating power, it's ridiculous. Now, we don't really know where the market's going to go from here, if it's going to keep going down, or if it's going to bottom out, or if it's going to start going back up. But what I do know is that right now, this is a fantastic market to be buying in, just because you have no competition whatsoever. Now, if you're selling, on the other hand, that's where things get a little bit trickier. Homes are still selling, and some of them are selling relatively quickly. Like I said, 460 sales across all of Hamilton last month, but you just have to be very strategic with the way that you go about marketing your home. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to me. And if you're buying your first home in Hamilton, then you're going to want to check out my free first-time home buyer survival guide. It's down in the description. It'll just walk you through the entire process for buying your first home, start to finish. Or if you just like to ask some questions, you can always book a free call with me as well. All right, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to check out this video right here for some more Hamilton real estate tips, or you can hit that button over there to subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time.